Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Sunday, April 20th, 2014. Happy Easter. And this is RoopleeTV. Hey everybody, I'm Rooplee. Bringing you another episode of RoopleeTV. First off, I want to tell you about what I'm going to talk about today. So, everybody who plays Dota, plays Soloqueue, at least I usually play Soloqueue every once in a while, and has a lot of issues, I would say, with Soloqueue. It's not always what... I mean, there are all sorts of issues that come up, you know. Oh, my team did this, my team did that. Oh my gosh, I'm stuck in, you know, ELO hell, whatever that means. All sorts of things like that. And honestly, it's kind of just, all of it's just excuses, more or less. Like, people don't focus on the real root of the problem, and so they don't really focus on getting better. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about getting better. Things you can do in every one of your matches to ensure a good chance of winning. So I've been doing this personally. I've been taking, I guess, my own advice for the past couple of weeks, and I have approximately like a 90% win rate in ranked as of late, just because I've been taking my own advice and doing exactly what I want to do. Like, exactly what needs to be done, and it makes a world of difference. And, you know, when you're playing a 10-person game, if you have a 90% win rate, I mean, there's something going on there, and it just says something about how the MMR works, and how well it works, and how you can influence every game. So, first off, I want to talk about some misconceptions about Soloqueue in general. So first off, the first misconception is my team is bad. On average, this is a fun fact, on average, your MMR and your team is exactly equal to the MMR of the opposing team. So the chances of you having somebody on your team who is bad is just as high as the chances of somebody on the other team having somebody who is bad. So just because you can see the flaws in your own teammates, take note that these same flaws are happening on the other side. So everything is even except for one thing, and that's you. You are the X factor in every single game, and treat your game like that. Be like, this is, you know, I have the chance to make or break this game, which you do every single game. Granted, some of your picks may be weird sometimes, you know, your team might have too many carries or something like that. Just know that you are the one person that is the deciding factor for that game. Without you, just assume the game would be completely even. There are a lot of varying factors in there, but if you approach it with the fact that you are the person that can win or lose this game, you will go very far. And you might ask, oh, how do I win or lose this game? Well, we'll get into that later. A few other misconceptions I want to talk about is being a sacrificial lamb. This happens more so when you're playing support than anything else. Some people think it's a good thing to die. Not usually. People say, oh, I died because I'm a support, and it doesn't matter. No, that doesn't matter. I mean, like, it does matter that you died as a support. If you died for nothing, that's really bad. Supports, even though people think they're worth less, are worth just as much as any other player in the game, and even more than any other player in the game early on. You just don't see... People don't realize how important a supporter early on is, and how they they do trail off as the game goes on, the nature of a support, but at the same time, the support is a powerhouse in the early game, and you need to take control of that. If the support dies, they lose that potency and the power that they used to have. Now, if you die and you do save your carry, that's obviously a good thing. But if you die placing a ward, or if you die just because, you know, oh, I'm a support, whatever, you know, at least my carry's still getting farm. Just don't die. Like, it sounds super simple, but when you're playing the game, just be like, is what I'm doing right now going to cause me to die more likely? And if you say yes, then you probably shouldn't do it. The only time you should do it is if you take a very calculated risk, but I don't recommend those very often because a lot of times you get your adrenaline pumping and you get into the moment and you're like, oh man, if I jump past this tier 2 tower, I can go and I can kill their carry and then I can get first blood, and then you end up dying, and then your teammate who tries to save you ends up dying, and you're both in the wrong because neither one of you should have died. Like, your teammate shouldn't have tried to save you when you went crazy, and you shouldn't have gone crazy trying to kill them. So, oh man, Twitch is lagging so much. Uh-oh. Let me check that out. That sucks. Hopefully it's a little better. It looks decent on my end, so I don't know. Let me know if it's still happening. I can see what I can do on this end to fix it up. But anyway, yeah. So back into what I was talking about. Okay, so yeah, being the sacrificial lamb, don't die. Another misconception is that in order to win your solo queue games, you have to play the pace setter, you have to play the playmaker, you know, I have to be the Templar assassin, I have to be this hero, that hero, the other hero. And if you are, I will say two things about this. First off, this does apply in certain circumstances, but only if you are, I would say, like 500 or 1,000 MMR higher than everybody else in the game. Something like that. I don't know exactly what that number is, but if you're, if your MMR is like 6,000 and you go and you play like a Keeper of the Light, you're not going to have the impact that you want to have to win the game. But on the same hand, you can actually play active other roles too. You don't have to play a mid and you don't have to play a carry. Those just happen to be able to carry the game well. So that's why at the higher end people just say, oh, pick the big playmakers, pick the people who can just are good all game long and can carry the entire game. And like I said, that matters if your MMR is, or if your play is better than your MMR, which most people will say, yeah, my play is better than my MMR, but until you prove it, just settle down and figure out a good team composition. That is way more important. It's way more important to have a good team composition than to have 5 carries. Nobody can win against a competent team if they have 5 carries and the other team is supporting correctly. It's just nearly impossible. Because they'll win the early game, and then their carries will out-carry 2 of your carries, and then you're done. So, yeah. Just team composition is more important than your specific role. Another misconception is, oh, I have to play support. I'm the number 5 support because I get the least farm, and I can't do anything for these games. But the fact is, the only reason you can't do anything for these games is because you don't know what to do or how to do it exactly. Being the number 5 support does not mean sitting in a lane trying to get denies and soaking up your carry's experience. What it does mean is zoning out the enemy offlaner. First and foremost, zone out the enemy offlaner. Make sure your carry gets decent farm. That is the first and foremost thing. Secondly, you can convert that then. Once your carry can get more last hits than the opponent, you want to stay out of the experience range to get your carry more levels. Then your carry will have more levels than the offlaner and will be able to solo the offlaner. The moment your carry can solo the enemy offlaner and go head-to-head in that lane is the moment that your carry can freely farm and you can do whatever you want. Now, granted, there are some times when there's a really rough lane, but if that does happen, you should still be focusing on getting your carry as much experience as possible and out-leveling the enemy team. So, you want to do that first and foremost. Secondly, stacking and pulling creeps are good for 2 things. They keep the creep equilibrium. If the creep is going too close to the enemy tower, you can pull a creep wave. A stacked creep wave is easier than a chain pull usually, but a chain pull nets more experience and more gold. which is why you don't see too many stacked camp pulls on the professional scene as much as you do in pub games. So if you can get a stacked pull, then that'll get you, or a chain pull, that'll get you like a level and a half early on as a support, which is just phenomenal for a support. And your carry doesn't lose any experience, which is even better. And then on top of that, once you have creep, equilibrium, once your carry is, at least relatively safe farming, you can gank. Ganking mid, if you get a smoke early on and you gank middle, you can generally just kill them outright. A lot of the middle players, unless they're like a Queen of Pain or a Puck or somebody with a good escape, they are very vulnerable to ganks early on. Very, very vulnerable to ganks early on. So take advantage of that and just go for it. Like, go for that gank in mid. I mean, there will be trial and error. Sometimes it won't happen. Sometimes it will happen. But if the mid player on the enemy team is pushing the creep wave forward, that's a really good time for you to gank. You can go behind them, you can smoke, you can gank, and then just pull them in. Your mid wins the lane, and your carry wins the lane. So if your two biggest farmers win their lanes, it's looking really good for your entire team. Yeah, I think those are the biggest things I hear as far as like people complaining, as far as the misconceptions go. But I want you guys, when you play in your solo queue, to follow a few simple rules in order to win a good chunk of your games. So first off, don't die. I covered that earlier, but don't die. Sounds extremely simple in nature. Just to not ever die is, that sounds really simple. But if you just put that in your head whenever you're playing, is like, don't die, and don't die, you will win more games than you can imagine. A single death will, in general, set you back 3 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes on whatever item you're building. Think about it that way. Granted, early game it's not as much, and late game it's more. Early game it's like a minute and a half. Late game it can be, especially with a buyback, like 10 or 15 minutes even. Like, you can be perpetually getting no items if you die late game. And that's just obviously awful. So just think about it. If you die, you are setting the clock back for your item progression by like 3 minutes. No matter what role you play. If you're playing support, if you're playing, carry. Support, you don't get those brown boots until like minute 7 or 8 if you die early on. And if you don't get those brown boots, then you can't run away, and then you just continually die, and you just keep going down that spiral of death. So, and then as a carry, instead of getting that 15-minute Battle Fury or that 13-minute Battle Fury for, high end, obviously, you end up getting a 17, 18, 21-minute Battle Fury, and then by that time, at 21 minutes, say you're an anti-mage, you could have a Battle Fury and a Manta style. So you're an entire item behind if you die 3 times early on. There's a big chain of effects that happen if you die. Secondly, be selfish. Now, I say this with a word of caution. I don't mean take last hits from your carry. Respect your team. Do not steal farm from your teammates. They are there to work with you to win this game. So don't steal farm from them, but be selfish in the fact of get every last hit and every deny you can when when it's applicable. You can go as a carry, and obviously you want to get every single last hit and every single deny as possible, and only teleport to team fights when they're happening at your tower, and you can get a kill out of it. Because a single creep wave has about as much gold as an entire hero kill early on. So every 30 seconds, you're essentially getting a hero kill worth of gold in your lane. Just sitting there. So if you are out of your lane for a minute and you get 1 hero kill, that's actually a net negative early on in the game. Yeah, put that into perspective. So you want to farm those creeps early on. Oh yes, I will definitely list these rules afterwards. So thank you. I'll be putting these rules up. just so you guys can follow them, have a little cheat sheet going on. I could even actually put these on the screen, but I will keep them up in chat for after the game. Here, actually, let me write these down on the screen. So what was I talking about? Misconceptions. 7? Yeah, cool. So bam. All right. Format, font. Let's see, our font size. Let's stick something huge so that everybody can see it. Misconceptions. Alrighty. So first, the misconception of being the sacrificial lamb. Second one is playing a pacemaker for the game. Third is your support doing nothing. 4 is blaming others. Never, ever, ever blame others for your game, because there's nothing you can do about it. If you blame somebody else for the game, then you're just saying, oh, there's nothing I could have done better, when everybody can do something better at all times. So, rules, don't die. Second rule, be selfish. Get last hits, but work with teammates. Alright, cool. Sweet. Okay, so we are caught up. Yeah, so let's go ahead and just go back to this, and I'll just keep going with it. Sweet. Okay, so don't die, be selfish. You want to be able to get those last hits, get those farms, and you also want to protect your team when you should protect your team. So as a carry, you want to protect your team when they really, really need you. You don't want to really protect your team all of the time, just because your farm is so incredibly important to secure the late game. You need to have good farm in order to win the game. That's how it goes when you are such a high priority. As a mid hero, you should always have a TP after your level 6 and be ready to TP at any point in time. Since your mid hero is your highest level hero in the game, and their spells have a gigantic impact earlier on and in the mid game. So as a mid hero, you really want to have that TP early on. And as an offlaner, generally once you hit level 6, you want to be really active about it, but you can go earlier as an offlaner, because getting a kill earlier means more farm for you than usually what's going on in your lane. If you're doing fantastic in your lane and you're shutting down the enemy carry, then just keep doing that. It's always a game of how much farm I have versus how much farm the other team has. So, cool. Alright, so number 3, get farmed. It sounds pretty simple in concept, just get farm. What I mean by that is that no matter what role you are, no matter where you're at in the game, you should always be focusing on where I can get more gold and more experience. So I always like to use the example of supports, because these rules fall naturally for a carry and for a mid, to try and get as many last hits as you can, to try and get, you know, all of your farm that's humanly possible within the game. But as a support, people sometimes pride themselves on the few number of last hits they have at the end of the game, or, oh, I didn't take any of my carry's farm type of thing, and that's not really what you want to focus on. You want to focus on more of where can I get farm that's not going to detract from my other teammates' farm. So one reason why Nature's Prophet is a really popular hero in general is because he can always get farm somewhere where nobody else on your team can get farm. He can farm the enemy jungle, for example. If it's a really, really tough game, the enemy jungle is one of the safest places in the game, because the enemy team will be pressuring your towers, and they will be 5-manning, and they will be on your side of the map. and then you can go on their side of the map and farm, and then your carry can farm one lane where the other team is not pushing, and then your other 3 heroes can try and hold off a little bit or push another tower at the same time. If it's a really tough game, you have to make sacrifices in order to get your farm, but that is how you can come back into the game. So always focus on getting your farm. Prioritize based on how important the farming hero is, but you should be, especially as a support, you should be stacking camps. You should be ganking lanes, because there is only a finite amount of experience and gold on the map at any given point in time, and that can only be increased by stacking neutral camps and killing enemy heroes and the courier. Those are the only ways that you can get a legitimate advantage over somebody else, is by killing more neutrals or killing more heroes. Other than that, there is only a finite amount of creeps that come into the game at any given point in time. So you have to maximize your farm by killing neutrals and killing heroes as a support, or obviously last hitting every single creep. There are a lot of times when a mid player, I like to use Pudge as an example, because Pudge is super common in the pub scene. Like, I think he's the most played hero. Yes, yeah, he's like the most played hero of all time. Pudge is the most played hero ever. And Pudge likes to roam and gank. But if you're playing a game where you have a teammate Pudge, I actually enjoy having teammate Pudges on my team a lot of the time, if they know what they're doing and I'm playing support. Because they will leave the mid lane open, and then I can get level 6 at like 7 or 8 minutes into the game, while Pudge goes and ganks, and he gets level 6 at 5 minutes into the game. And then we just have an insane amount of farm on our team. I'm getting asked what my MMR is actually quite a bit. One thing I would say is don't focus on your MMR. It's obviously really good to have high MMR. I mean, I will admit that my MMR is not low. It's not 100% the highest. You know, I don't have a 6K MMR or anything like that. But I have played with and against professional players. So I know how to play against them, and I know what is needed to play against them. And I feel like at that point, the MMR doesn't matter terribly much. So... Nice. Mick DC1. I pick just solely to get high MMR. That actually brings me to another point on what you should do in order to win your ranked matches. So, what you want to do... sorry, I was talking about getting farm. And if you just maximize farm, great. Another thing you should do... another rule. Actually, let's go back to the rules. In ranked games, play what you are familiar with. So, this is what you want to do. You want to make sure that you're playing a hero you are familiar with in ranked games. You don't want to try out any new strategy in a ranked game in general, unless you're really confident that it's really good. And if you care about your MMR, you won't try crazy strategies in ranked games. Play what you're familiar with. Some people are familiar with certain heroes, and some heroes work well in a lot of situations. For example, when I play ranked MMR, most of my games have Terror Blades and Phoenixes and Ember Spirits just everywhere, just because. Yeah, so they tried to they just get these Terror Blades and these Phoenixes, and all you see are like a set of like 20 different heroes in any given game, I feel like, in ranked MMR. And that's just because of what's most popular in professional scenes, as well as what heroes are deemed as imbalanced at any given point in time. I will admit that Terror Blade and Phoenix are both very strong heroes. Phoenix is really good in the offlane because he can harass the enemy carry, and he can get a mechanism up quickly, which is really, really powerful. Fusion Pepper. Sorry if I mispronounce your name, but yeah, you do get the Russian servers do get a lot of crazy things going on. You do get a lot of people who insta-lock their pudges and their snipers, demand mid, feed, and then you cry. It happens. Like, yeah, there's no avoiding that. You cannot really get 100% win rate just because. Oh man, Russians. Not to be racist or anything, but there are definitely some times where people just insta-lock their pudges and their snipers, and you just have to learn how to play around it. As long as you focus on you're the X factor in every game, just go for it, and then you can do a lot better. So back to the point, play what you are familiar with. Yeah, play what you're familiar with and what your team needs. Because if you don't do that, then you're just not helping your team out. For example, yesterday, this is actually a fun fact. Yesterday, I played, I wanted to try out a Wraith King support. So I played an unranked game as Wraith King support. And I went like 7-3 with 17 assists. And we dominated the game, and I was like, wow, this is really good. You know, I got Mana Boots, and then I got Blink Dagger. And then I just ran in. At the end of the game, I had like Mana Boots, Blink Dagger, Mechanism, Vladimir's, and it was like a 30-minute game. So, and it was really good. So I decided to try it out in ranked, and I didn't die. I didn't die as a support Wraith King. I just tried out that build, and it was the most awesome thing ever. But I tried it out once in a regular game, and then I went into a ranked match, and it worked even better in ranked. So you can play what you're unfamiliar with, just don't play it in ranked for your first one. Let's see. And then I think that is all I've got. Oh, another one that's really, really important is to trust your instincts. I cannot say this enough. So many times people want to just go with whatever their team is doing, which you have to be able to adapt to what your team is doing. But I have seen too many times when somebody will... So what will happen, and what will happen a lot in games, is that people really want to kill Roshan, and they really want to kill tier 3 towers. I don't know why people put so much pressure on these two things, but I have seen times where the enemy team is completely respawned, and my team's like, hey, let's go do Rosh. And I'm like, no, we shouldn't, because they all just respawned, and they're going to kill us inside of that little pit. Yeah, so like if you just think about it and take a step back and say, hey, I'm going to trust my instincts on this one, you're generally a lot better off. A general rule that I like to follow is what would happen if the enemy team has 10 seconds to react. So if the enemy team has 10 seconds to react and I might die, I don't want to do it. Like, the 10 seconds is not enough time to get much done. If you're sieging a tier 3 and somebody is going to kill you, you see that their carry, this hero, are all coming back in 10 seconds, just back off. Like, you don't want to rush that type of engagement. And a lot of times you can lose an entire game just from that. I've actually played games before where we take out the enemy mid-racks, and then we die, and then they go and they kill our throne. Like, we lose the game because we took out the enemy racks. So don't focus on pushing something too hard. If you try to do that, you will lose games, and you will lose them very badly. So that's about all I have to cover. And I will actually go into a couple of games from professional players to show some of these aspects on what they're doing in order to win their games better. So this first one is a game from EG.Arteezy. So this is just a regular pub match with EG.Arteezy, and we can actually see a lot of things that he does in order to win. Okay, cool. Going into the game right now. Alrighty. Booting up the game. So once we get into the game, I will talk about some of the things that EG.Arteezy does that's really good in this game and how he maximizes his ability to win this game. So let's go ahead and just skip back past the picking phase, you know, past all of this stuff. First off, I want to talk about Arteezy's item build. So Arteezy is known to be very try-hard in his public games. And he tends to maximize everything. Like, he tends to just do what he would do in a professional game on a on public matches. So like, he is practicing for real games whenever he's playing in a public game. And as you can see with his item build, he actually gets pooled 2 tangos, has a null talisman, and 2 iron branches. I would not expect anybody to actually get pooled tangos on a consistent basis in a solo queue game, just because it doesn't happen that much. I mean, I actually was in a game yesterday where people were pooling tangos, and it happens more frequently now, but it doesn't always happen. So he got tangos pooled towards him. What you can do as a mid hero instead is just go for the null talisman and go for 4 tangos if you need those last hits. As an intelligence hero, that's what you should. You can do that as one of your options. There are a lot of different item builds, but this is what Arteezy goes for, because if you get more right-click damage, you're more likely to win the lane. So one thing that Arteezy does that is not good is that he blocks too much, and the creep wave is getting hit by this tower. It's going to push the lane out, but he can zone out the invoker pretty well, so it's not that big of an issue. See, he can just zone out right there. Use Astral Imprisonment all day long, because if you look, Invoker's base damage is 45 right now, and Outworld Devourer's is 68. It gives him a huge advantage, and he's able to get most of these last hits. Arteezy is not focusing on killing the Invoker. He is just focusing on getting last hits and getting denies. What he did right there is he actually, if you attack click the hero within 500 range, so about that much range, the enemy creeps will attack you, and he's constantly readjusting these creeps to get them as far behind the invoker as possible to just disallow any form of deny. That's what he's focusing on right now. And he was able to get that last hit right there and get that deny. So like, he has an insane amount of CS compared to this invoker already. Invoker has 0 last hits. There, he just got his first last hit. And Arteezy has 5 last hits and 10 denies. So he is like, just, you know, he actually has lower experience, but this entire creep wave is about a level of experience for him. So we'll see him shoot up to about level 3.5 after these creeps are dead. And he ends up killing them out, and see, he's just right at 3.5. But he is also, he's fighting under the tower, so he knows his creep wave will push out. It's not as big of a deal in mid as a safe lane, but he still goes with it. Arteezy is fine with this. He is getting a lot of farm, he is getting a lot of levels, and he is denying Invoker levels. Like, Invoker is almost exactly a level behind right now, just from that. So what happens right here, I'm actually going to pause it for just a second. So we have a Darkseer is right here with an Invis rune, and he's looking to kill Arteezy. Arteezy has enough money, and he has purchased his bottle, but it is still a walking courier because it's not 3 minutes. So Darkseer comes in, gets fortunate enough to kill that, but Arteezy, instead of backing up right here, most people would back up right here. So in this situation, most people would back up and, you know, fear for their lives. 2 heroes against 1 hero, and I have 100 hit points. What Arteezy does instead is he goes and he grabs his bottle, he uses a bottle charge, and then he goes on the offensive because these bottle charges are giving him enough health. He's able to get that first kill, and then he uses another bottle charge, gets a second kill. So he is able to get 2 kills there just because he didn't think defensively, and he thought, oh, I can get these kills, and I don't have any real risk of dying because he knows Invoker is an Exort Invoker. The worst case scenario is a Sunstrike, maybe a Cold Snap, but he doesn't even have a point in Quas yet. So he does not have Cold Snap. He just has 2 points in Sunstrike. So there was a Sunstrike and an Ion Shell, and that's all he had to worry about. And he was just able to get that double kill right there. So Arteezy is doing great in this lane. He's already got 2 kills, and he's got as many denies as last hits. So he's doing fine, but the courier is dead. Arteezy as a player really likes to abuse the courier, and by abusing the courier, he can actually get a lot more done in mid than most people do. He bottle crows exclusively, like he is the exclusive courier holder sometimes for the entire game. And as you can see, he's just able to zone out the Invoker right here. Like, Invoker, he's level 3. Outworld Devourer is level 6. Like, there is nothing this Invoker can do. This lane is done and gone. Once you win a lane like this, you can run at him with 200 hit points like this and just not worry about dying. I mean, granted, that was a bit aggressive, a bit too aggressive. As you can see, there's a smoke gank that comes along here, but Arteezy is so over-leveled. These two supports are level 2. Well, Darkseer not as a support, but these two heroes are level 2, and Arteezy is level 6. You'll be able to see how much damage he does. So it's Friendly Earth Spirit comes in, and 390 damage with his ult. So Arteezy right now, he's getting ganked, but because he won that laning phase so incredibly hard, it doesn't really matter to him. Dazzle gives him a salve to help out quite a bit, but it really doesn't matter much. Here, there's a pause, so I guess we'll pause too, right? So in this game, Arteezy just focused on winning the lane and winning the farm battle. That's how he was able to get that kill on Darkseer, get that kill on Invoker, but after that, he is continuing to just keep the aggression up. A lot of times people will win and then they will go passive. Now, Arteezy is not known to be a passive player. He is a very aggressive player when he plays, but at the same time, he knows where his limits are and he abuses it like crazy. So he's abusing his limits. As you can see, he was like 200 hit points going in, and he just killed Shadow Shaman. He hit 400 damage on him out of his 550 max hit points using his ult. So most people do not skill Sanity's Eclipse at level 6 just because they need to win the lane harder. But since Arteezy was already winning the lane, he went for Sanity's Eclipse just for that reason. Just in case somebody would gank him, he would be able to go for it. Now, he is just continuing his farm here. See, he's not letting up on the pressure at all. Once the Invoker gets shut down and has, his 60 damage base versus Outworld's 100, there's really not much to stop him. And keep in mind, this is a ranked game that Arteezy is playing in, so it's not like this is a pushover match at all or anything like that. This is actually like him at his, his 5,700 MMR, just playing against an Invoker at, a similar, like, he's in the same game as this Invoker, but he is making a lot of decisions that just really help him out. Granted, he is getting fortunate in sometimes, but he's making decisions to help him out. And then this is what I was talking about. He will actually put the bottle on the courier just to fill it up and stay in the lane. But as you can see, Arteezy is going for an early Midas. Well, not extremely early Midas, but he's going for an early Midas. And this is just because of the one fact of whenever you're playing a game, and this isn't even just Dota, whenever you're playing a game, if you're ahead, just get more ahead. And by getting this early Midas, he will be out-leveled, and he will be able to level faster than everybody else. But he is able to just win harder. Now in this situation, he does get ganked by 3 heroes. Tiny does toss him in and then does get a kill. But that was just unfortunate. Yeah, Arteezy does not get every last hit, and that's just because nobody's perfect. But he is trying really hard to get as many last hits as possible. He will even, as an Outworld Devourer, he will use his Astral Imprisonment on the heroes to stop last hits. Another hero that does this a lot is Tinker mid. If you use your laser at the right time, it's pretty similar to Astral Imprisonment in that you can shut down people from getting their last hits, and then when you do that, you just win better. Now, this is fortunate for Arteezy. If we look at this right now, Sanity's Eclipse is ready. Tiny has 120 hit points, and Shadow Shaman has 400 hit points, so enough to die as well. And then there's Invoker. But I'm going to slow it down a little bit just, oops, I mean slow it down, not go back 10 seconds. So, let's see, go ahead and go forward. Just so you guys can see what's going on here. Slow it down just a little bit so we can watch it. Watch to see what kind of split-second decision-making Arteezy makes. So he gets Shadow Shaman thrown on him, and he's actually just really stuck right here. Sunstroke, everything. His buddy Dazzle comes in, but he just quickly pops his ult and then uses Astral on the third one. So the Astral not on the Invoker, because he knew he wasn't going to be able to kill the Invoker with his ultimate. He just Astraled the Invoker and then used his ultimate on the other two because he knew that would immediately kill, if not severely injure, both of them. He knew Tiny would die, but he wasn't sure about Shadow Shaman. So some split-second decision-making by Arteezy gets him a double kill, and now he's 5-1 in the lane. And this has not been an easy lane for Arteezy. Arteezy has had a lot of pressure on him. I mean, he has had a lot of heroes coming in. He's had, you know, the Shadow Shaman has come in 3 times now. So Shadow Shaman has been in his lane 3 times. Tiny has been in his lane twice, and Darkseer has been in his lane twice as well. So it's not like it's been an easy or just a straight up 1v1 matchup. This is just Arteezy showing that he can win the lane. I mean, like, he won the lane against the Invoker, and that causes him to just spiral out of control. And you want to keep this spiral going and just keep going forward. I mean, if we look overall the game, Arteezy has all 5 of his team's kills. So without Arteezy on the team, it would actually be 0-4 because Shadow Shaman just killed Timbersaw. And Arteezy is showing that he is just like the X Factor in this game. I mean, Darkseer tries to gank him. He pulls a little stunt right here, goes Astrals him, and then goes Invis right here just so Darkseer doesn't know he's here. And then he'll just pop right out of Invis and then take out the Darkseer. So, well, not quite yet, but maybe not at all. He did get juked there a little bit in the woods, but that was actually a really good play by Darkseer. Or nice play to juke him out just a little bit. So yeah, Arteezy was able to not get the kill, but again, he's free farming in his lane. Like, there is the level 7 Invoker who has actually caught up a decent amount, but he's not able to really put too much pressure on Arteezy. And at this point, it's like, if Arteezy doesn't make any mistakes, he's just going to go more and more. One thing I do want to note about Outworld Devour is when you get around the 1200 mana range, you can actually turn on your Arcane Orb and permanently cast it. And for the most part, you will get all of your mana back. Like, as long as the odds aren't horribly out of your favor, you will get the mana back. So Dazzle comes in here to get the slowdown. I actually want to back up and show you that this was not really planned by Arteezy. Arteezy just goes and he astrals people just on a regular basis. So, like, he's just astraling, and this was the Shadow Priest, Dazzle, paying attention and just getting a poison touch on him. And that just, this right-click damage is monstrous, and Invoker just dies. So, like, that was actually a good play on the Dazzle, but Arteezy was just playing as he would normally play, constantly sapping 10 intelligence at a time from the Invoker. And then it opened up a window for Dazzle to go and kill him. So Dazzle came in, helped out Arteezy, and this tower is going to go down as well. So one thing I want to note here is that if we look down here, there's a lot of action going on. So there's this Tiny over here. There's this Darkseer over here. There's actually this very low health Shadow Shaman over here. And Arteezy, when he plays his public matches, he's playing very selfishly. Now, he still has a TP scroll, which is good, but he sees that he cannot really get an opportunity if he teleports to that lane right now. So he's going to just stay in this mid lane and pressure down this tower, because these heroes right here, see, they're running back. I mean, like, they're not quite dead, but, you know, he doesn't need to put pressure on those lanes because they're, you know, if he would go there, he would not be able to contribute enough to either help his team out enough or to be able to kill. So he just stays in his lane, continues to push this lane. So he's right-clicking all of the creeps. He does not care about creep equilibrium at all. He wants to knock down this tower. And the glyph is on cooldown, so he's going to try. Actually, a really good job of the Dire side to stop that. But RoopleeTV goes in and he can like one-shot the enemy team right now because of the nature of the Obsidian Destroyer, or Outworld Devourer, Outhouse Demolisher, whatever his name is. He's able to go and just kill those heroes straight up, and their Invoker dies as well. So like, he is so buff because he just took that early game advantage and is just continuing with it. Now in this situation, RoopleeTV does get a little cheeky. He's playing with death. This Terrorblade, who hasn't died yet, he's 2-0. Does need to die, but as you can see, he's buying time for his allies to come in and help him out. Now RoopleeTV is still going to go in, and he almost dies here. But he does end up getting a Force Staff. So RoopleeTV gets a Force Staff to keep this pressure going. He has Force Staff now, he has Midas, and then now he's going to get Tread so that he has more hit points and more sustainability. And the Force Staff in particular really helps him keep this momentum for his team now. Before, everything was just focused on RoopleeTV. It was just like, I'm going to do the most I can for myself. And as you can see, he did. He has 8 kills and 2 assists. So he is able to just do this all for himself now. But this Force Staff right now says, hey, I can go and I can help out my team. He actually thought about teleporting down here, but he saw these 3 heroes and his ultimate's on cooldown. So the best case scenario is he would kill 1 or 2 heroes and then die. He doesn't want to do that, so he continues to farm mid. Earth Spirit actually does the same thing, which is good for both of them. But at the same time, by being able to cancel these 2 TPs, they're able to secure a kill on the Invoker. And the Force Staff, like I was talking about the Force Staff before, but since RoopleeTV has this Force Staff now, his mobility is through the roof, and he's going to focus a lot more on helping out his team, because he's such a huge asset to his team right now, being a part of 11 of the 13 kills for his team. He's just able to shut down the entire enemy team almost all by himself, and he knows this, so he's just going to keep the pressure going. Like I said, once you have a pressure going, just keep it going, and his right-click damage is nuts, like out of control. Able to get kills. One thing I want to make a quick note is that if you have a Midas, you should use it every single cooldown. That should be like your most important thing. Just focus on that Midas all the time. Whenever you see pros play, they always use their Midas like within 5 seconds of it going off cooldown. Plan ahead for your Midas. Try to get the big creeps, since it gives 2.5 times experience as well. But if you are a carry or sometimes a mid laner, don't worry about getting the big jungle creeps. Just get the melee creeps in general, because they will give you more experience. So RoopleeTV just sets up everything with a single Astral Imprisonment, and that just demolishes the enemy. Right here, teleport, not a smart idea. That's what I was talking about earlier. Like, when you teleport, don't teleport aggressively like that, because you'll probably just die. I think if, the team has 10 seconds to react, what would they do? And they kill you. So he goes and he actually cancels his TP, which is really smart. But if he didn't, he would have just died for free. Died for free, which is not good. Yeah, so now RoopleeTV is just going in. He can do like a third of Shadow Shaman's health with one right click. And like I was talking about before, but I still want to keep on reinforcing it, is that RoopleeTV is ahead, but he's not putting up at all. He's not slowing down at all. Like, he is just going for the gold and keeping up, just keeping up all of the pressure. So Terrorblade is going to, be able to get the Timbersaw kill right here, potentially get RoopleeTV kill, but RoopleeTV makes a smart move. He actually cancels him. Oh, yeah. So he does end up dying there. Terrorblade got a right click while he was hopping through. But Yeah. So if we actually look at this game right now, we can see that Arteezy was able to put enough pressure to take out these 2 towers mid, and this caused more heroes to rotate to mid to try and defend. And this tower's gone, and this tower's gone as well. One thing I want to show you guys is that as far as kills go, for the Radiant, Timbersaw is 0-4 with 6 assists. Arteezy is 12-2. And then you've got 2-1, 2-2, and 1-2. So Arteezy is getting all of these kills, and besides Earth Spirit being around for a lot of the assists, Arteezy is like a part of everything. Earth Spirit is doing a really good job of rotating and keeping up with Arteezy in general. So Arteezy, he actually teleports to the tier 2, and right now he's going to be able to just attack. And at this point, there's really not much more analysis to go through. It's just Arteezy is just steamrolling people. He got his Mystic Staff. He has like 500 right-click damage, and the team is just barreling out of control. If we look, it's actually, the difference in gold is only, 3,000-4,000. I mean, it is 17 minutes in, but the experience is not that much either. It's 2,500. The thing, if we look at, is like the net worth. Oh, wow. Arteezy is actually tied with the Terrorblade as far as net worth goes. So that's wise, because this Terrorblade has actually been doing a really good job. And I know some of you were asking how Terrorblade is so powerful in this metagame, and it's just because his illusions get so incredibly buff. Metamorphosis gives you up to 80 bonus damage and a ranged attack for 52 seconds. So you can actually use that to secure safe farm in lanes, and then he kind of becomes a Phantom Lancer in the fact that he can push down towers and push down bases all by himself, but he has more power because he can choose when his illusions come, unlike Phantom Lancer. He can choose when the illusions come, and he also has Sunder. Sunder makes a huge difference for him because he's able to swap his hit points when they get low, and then he turns an entire fight around. He can turn a 2v1 into a victory for himself easily like that. And it just makes him really good. So right now, Arteezy is doing really well. Report the Invoker. So obviously the Shadow Shaman is not happy with his Invoker's play. But, it happens. Like, people shouldn't get reported for bad play. That just in general, they shouldn't get reported just for bad play unless they're feeding or something like that. But yeah, so Arteezy just takes a nice, quick, swift, and easy win throughout this, and they're just going to be able to push and just go for the base. So that's obviously pretty much the whole game. People are bantering like crazy. OD was strong, Invoker was strong, blah blah blah. Just finish out this game, get it over with. I just want to show you guys the end screen just a little bit, just to show you how much Arteezy made a difference here. So Arteezy has 748 gold per minute, 606 gold or EXP per minute, and then 105 last hits. One thing that Arteezy focused on was, even though he was getting all of these kills, he was still getting a lot of last hits. So he was just doubling up his farm. He got a lot of last hits, he had a Hand of Midas, and he got a lot of hero kills. So one thing I forgot to mention earlier on, as far as how to pull more gold into the game, a Hand of Midas will do that. So you've got Hand of Midas stacking and killing more neutrals than the enemy, and and then killing more heroes than the enemy can, as well as not leaving any farm from the lanes on the table. You should be farming the lanes as much as possible, like all 3 of your lanes, whenever you can, in order to get that experience and farm. So that's the game that I just wanted to show you, like an example of what can happen if one player does really well on a team. Now, the rest of Arteezy's team did not do that well. We can actually go back, go to the score screen for this, and we can check this out. So if we look at the score screen, we can see that the rest of Arteezy's team didn't do that well at all. As far as like actual stats goes, they didn't do terribly well. I mean, like, the Timbersaw had a good amount of experience, but everybody else has like half of the experience as Arteezy did, and like half of the gold. Lycan did get 66 last hits, and Timbersall got 52. But that's, I mean, Arteezy, for all of the action that he was in, was still able to pull the most last hits by anybody on either team. And that just makes a huge impact into the game. Focusing on your last hits is huge. So one thing I would suggest for you to personally improve your MMR is to get better at last hitting and denying. There's actually, I didn't think it would be as decent as it is, but there's a pretty decent mid trainer that Valve has included, where, at least in my experience, I played against Lion, but like he would attack click me in order to pull the creeps closer to him to get better farm, and then like he would hex me in order to deny me last hits and things like that. So it's like, it's not bad, but it's the 10-minute last hit challenge. If you go like, if we actually go back into the game, I forget where it is here. Let me find it out real quick. Training. There we go. So if we actually go into this screen and go into training, there's one that's just a last hit practice. And it gives you 10 minutes, and then you just try and get as many last hits and denies as you can against an enemy Lion. So like, that's really good to just practice on. I've done that a couple of times. I actually did it with Shadow Fiend, where I didn't buy any items, it didn't skill any skills, because Shadow Fiend has really low base damage. He's also a fairly common mid as well, and it just helps to realize that when to last hit and when to get that last hit. Like, you're not just looking at what their health bar is, you're looking at how fast it changes. You're trying to pull the creeps towards yourself by attack clicking an enemy hero, and then the creeps come closer to you, farther away from the opponent, keeping creep equilibrium by just making sure that the range creeps are fine and everything like that. So it's, like I said, it's a pretty good practice. It's not as good as going in-game, but depending on your MMR, if your MMR is high, then going in-game is going to help you out more, obviously. But, you know, if you're hovering around the 2, 3, 4,000 mark, whatever, just go into there and just try it out. Like, you can actually be a good Dota player, but have bad last hits. That's something that I've run into in the past, is that I would play support all of the time, and it made my last hits not as good as my friends who would play, like, not as much as me. So I was like, well, I need to fix this. So I focused on that for, you know, 10, 20 games or so. Just focus on picking heroes to get as many last hits as possible. And now I can secure, you know, at least that 50 last hits per 10 minutes type of mark. I like to, if I'm a safe farming carry, like to obviously get more, but like seeing yourself get that many last hits in 10 minutes, just, it makes a world of difference for the game, and you get so much more farm. So I'm going to open it up for questions real quick. Feel free to post them in the Twitch chat. I'll go ahead and try to answer a few of them, and then we'll go ahead and close out the show from there. So cool. Thank you guys for joining.